Welcome to another episode of Political Perspectives. I am your host, Ethan Micheal, and alongside me is my co-host for the evening,
Christian James Watkins. Yeah, I'm branding with the James now. Skipping the J and going right to James.
Ooh, I like that, but I don't know. I think the Christian J sounds better. It's more.
Hey, I tell you what. Either way, I'm ready to take some calls. I've missed this format, and I'm excited for some particular happenings that are going to occur soon. So,
me too. And we do have our first caller, but LTC keeps disconnecting, so hopefully they'll call back any moment. Maybe they're still trying to figure out how to use the phone system, but let us know who you're voting for and why, and we will pick your brain on it, whether it be Trump, Biden, or somebody else. I know our choices are not that good right now. Or if you want to just talk and engage about the current political climate, that would be nice too. We also have shows every Monday at 7 p.m. with the 13% hosted by Arthur Ward and Cynthia McDonald. And then every Thursday is In Black and White at 7:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time with myself and Rick Lockhart. However, we will be skipping this week. So, Christian, what are your thoughts so far? What's going on in the news this week, aside from that lovely and abominable Axios interview?
Well, I'm pretty much constantly disappointed with American politics. I can't say that I'm never really happy to be a part of American politics recently. It's been a real mess with the lack of response to COVID and the tremendous kind of dissonance that I see happening from people on both sides of the aisle who just really aren't having the conversations that need to be had. So I'm optimistic that we can have some calls today to get to the heart of the issue, but something tells me we may get some touting the party lines. That seems to be the political conversation today.
It would be genuinely nice if we could get away from these party lines and start having, like, what are your thoughts on, is it rank shift voting? I believe that's
ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice. Thank you. Ranked choice voting. And for those unfamiliar, rather than picking like either or, you write in your first, I believe it's 3 preferred candidates. So you write, I want this person as number 1, this person as number 2, and so on. And from what I've seen is it creates a healthier environment where politicians aren't, it's not winner take all anymore. They're not attacking each other. They're actually trying to work together. What do you think?
So I don't actually know enough about the policy specifics to make an endorsement, but what I will say is the idea of having more choice in a democracy to me seems like a no-brainer. So if the goal of our constitutional republic is to create the most amount of freedoms and the most amount of choice, then it seems to me like a ranked choice voting system would be adherent to those principles.
Right. I believe Maine, I'm going to have to look at that. I should have had come with that ready, but I believe they've seen some, let's just say, improved political ads without so much lashing out.
That sounds good to me. I'm always a fan of getting to the core issues as opposed to the mudslinging ad hominems. So.
Right. And it seems to always go that direction over and over and over again. Where we make, I don't know who this is, but I don't know what.
I know who he is.
Oh, okay. What is BreadTube?
I actually don't know that reference, but I do know who he is. He was just he was on the call in the earlier show that I did where I took calls. That is not in any way a ripoff of your show.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is it is a ripoff of my show.
That's not what I'm saying. It's what I'm implying. But.
So you ripped off my show, and then you also want to co-host this show every single week.
I mean,
what are you doing?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I have interesting angles. We'll see where it ends up.
All right. Well, in the meantime, let's get to our first caller.
I'm so excited.
Dean, you are on with Christian and Ethan. How are you?
What is going on, my friend? Fellow American. How are you doing?
Good. Yourself?
I'm just preserving the bastion of liberty that is America.
You know, I feel like no matter the show I'm on, I can't get away from you, Dean. I give you this. You are a persistent individual.
I know. It's because I just have way too much fun talking to you and talking to Christian. It's just too easy. So here's my question.
Sure.
Here's my question. So, what do you think happens given the current, temperature of the country? What do you think happens on the left and on the right should Donald Trump win re-election?
Sorry, do you think we think he should win the election?
He's asking, what do you think will be the reactions of the left and the right?
If he wins, I'm not saying he will. He's down like 11 to 15 points, depending on the poll you look at right now. Should he win, what do you think happens on the left, and what do you think happens on the right?
Well, honestly, I really hope he doesn't win, but if he does, I'll be honest, I think some people on the left could get more extreme than they already are. And again, I'm only referring to some people, not all the left. I think the divide in this country will further. I no longer think Donald Trump will have to hold back because he will have already won his second term and have nothing to prove at that point. I, in my own opinion, think it is going to be harmful to our nation.
I think whether Trump wins or loses, we're going to see an exasperation of the divide in the country. I think that if Trump loses, the right is going to believe that it was either rigged or that Trump lost or was treated unfairly, and that's going to cause backlash. I think if Trump wins, the left is going to say that Trump corkscrewed himself into a second term and that it was rigged. I don't think there's a way we escape this election without both the left and the right calling foul. And whether or not they're right is not really relevant, but I think they both will call foul to some extent. And I think this is the worst of all possible scenarios in a sense, because you have a lose-lose for both sides. And there is no fantastic option, but just to make it clear, I would much prefer to see Biden over Trump in the White House. And I think that any person who would argue for Trump is someone that I want to talk to immediately.
You know, we do have someone watching who I would love to call in. Trina, would you be willing to call in and talk to Christian? I will shut my mouth and stay out of it.
I love Trina.
Me too.
I guess my follow-up question would be, how do third parties then? So, for instance, like the Libertarian Party. A Libertarian Party, as far as I know, I could be wrong, is the largest third party that's out there. So how do we, as a country, if we're saying, all right, I don't like either choice on the Democrat side or the Republican side, how do we get to a situation where a third party at least has a marginal chance to win and or make a significant impact? You know, to launch a third party.
I've been wondering the same thing and racking my brain on this because I would love to see a third party. And this is where I'm genuinely torn right now. Is I feel like almost every election people say you can't vote third party because it's a waste and we have to vote, for this election right now. But how many more elections do we keep getting pulled into? Well, we have to choose.
Sorry, that's my girlfriend.
I was like, damn, Dean, I didn't say anything, man.
No, my girls just broke us up.
I totally lost my train of thought. Thanks, Dean.
I'll while you regather it back, here's what I'll say. Historically, in America, the creation of new options has come from reforming the old party. Like when we had Democratic Republicans, when we had Federalists, they didn't move into Republicans and Democrats because they made another party. They reformed the old party. So I'm much more of a reform the right, reform the Republicans, reform the Democrats. I don't think that a new party is going to rise very well because I don't think the system is set up to have a third party. I think it's set up to be in favor of two binary options. And if you want to change the options you have available, you're going to have to try reformist strategy because the third party is not winning an election in America. It's that simple. There's too much corporate interests at play.
Okay, so I gotta push back here. Christian, we are the change. Like, we can do this simply by getting people to fight with us. Like, why would you be content with agreeing and accepting that we're just stuck with this two-party system when, looking back, there were times we had more options available that were actually, looking back at Ross Perot, when we recognized an independent in a debate. We don't seem to be doing that anymore. You don't think we can push back and get to that point, starting with at least a third party?
No, I live in the reality that we exist in right now, and the truth is that we've gotten to a point in American politics where there is too much at stake for both the Democrats and the Republicans for them to relinquish power. Either of them will refuse to do
I
it.
agree, which is
So
why
creating a third party, the only thing it will do is force the DNC and the RNC to start adopting policies on their own platform, but they will not give up power to another party. And that's why I said what we should do is we should advocate for the policies we want and then hope that the DNC or the RNC adopts that platform. It's kind of like moving the Overton window, as opposed to trying to create a brand new party, because creating a brand new party will not only be immediately shut down, but even if it did start working, there's way too much money in the DNC and the RNC for that to ever be a viable strategy, in my personal opinion.
I get where you're going, but I feel that's a very defeatist option, or a defeatist mentality. Like,
Sometimes defeatism is right.
I don't think that's correct in this scenario. Accepting the lesser of two evils and a choice between left and right is not really a choice, in my opinion. I mean, it's gotten us to Biden and Trump as our best two options. I can't
I proposed a
say either of
solution. I
them
didn't
are
say we had to stick with the status quo. I said I proposed a solution that got us out of the status quo.
So I would think, if right now, let's say you and I try and start, a movement where we get like-minded people to agree to stop voting for Democrat or Republican and start voting independent, specifically in smaller areas where we can make like that initial impact. And then after we get those smaller areas, we expand and move from there. What do you think?
I mean, sure, you can try that until the DNC and the RNC crush you for being a resistance. Like, this has been tried. Like, we've tried having third parties that actually have political influence, and the RNC and the DNC refuse to let it happen. And if you want to try it, like, be my guest. Go ahead and make a third party. Make a brand new party where we all have happy fun times. But I'm trying to address some structural issues now, and the best way we can do that is by, the Democratic Party is right now being pushed to the left by people like AOC.
Right.
And that is an example of change, good or bad, happening inside parties that would normally be resistant to change. And that I think is an approach that's it's means tested. It's proven to work. If your strategy could work, then I would be on board, but I don't see any evidence that it would work.
I agree. I don't see any evidence that would work either. I just don't feel it's necessarily the best option to just accept what we have currently.
Yeah, I also wouldn't accept things without evidence, as you know, as we do here.
True. I'm not saying it will definitely work, not by any means.
Mhm.
I just think it's worth a shot. The problem is finding people willing to work with you on this. It's not easy.
I'm curious what Dean has to say.
Me too. Oh, sorry, Dean disconnected.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah, he did. He gave up already. He couldn't handle the two of us.
Well, okay, but the point. Chris is in chat. Hi, Chris. But the point that I'm making is not that we have to just resign ourselves to the status quo. I'm just saying sometimes the best way to change the status quo is to rely on something that we know have worked in the past, which is reforming inside parties.
Right. So if you have any thoughts on what we're talking about or anything political, give us a call. Numbers on the bottom of the screen, 951-ENGAGE.
I want Trina to call.
I really want Trina to call too, because I want to see you and her talk. I think that would be really exciting for me. But in the meantime, I think we should play if you could turn the knob back of your mic up, you should be able to back away. Which knob? This one or the one on the other side? I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Anyways, Axios interview. I feel like we should play the 4-minute clip I have available, and then we can give our feedback on it, because I will say I'm having trouble accepting it's real, even though I know it is, because it just seems so off the wall, borderline like a comedy sketch. And yes,
Well, when you elect a reality TV star as a president, this is what you get.
that's true. And yes, Trina, I really do want to see you and Christian talk very much.
Chris is giving you tech advice on air.
Wait, there's a better difference. Yeah. Let me know how that sounds now. I feel like I can back away a little bit. Christian, yes, no?
Yeah, no, you sound the same as you did before.
Okay, well, good, because now I'm at a further distance and I don't have to eat the microphone.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it, Chris. Okay, so I've been really wanting to watch this or discuss it with someone. So, Ethan and Trina weekly talk show. No. I don't think we need a weekly talk show. I do
pay
think
a good amount of money to see that.
I wouldn't. None. All right, here we go.
You do know that.
Who says that?
Oh, just read the manuals, read the books.
Manuals?
Read the
What
books.
manuals?
Read the books.
What books?
What testing does?
No, I'm
is
sorry.
It shows, wait a minute.
said-
Let me explain. What testing does? It shows cases. It shows where there may be cases.
I've covered you for a long time. I've gone to your rallies. I've talked to your people. They love you. They listen to you. They listen to every word you say. They hang on your every word. They don't listen to me or the media or Fauci. They think we're fake news. They want to get their advice from you. And so when they hear you say everything's under control, don't worry about wearing masks. I mean, these are people, many of them are older people,
What's
Mr.
your
President.
definition of control? Yeah. Under the
It's giving them a false
circumstances
sense of
right
security.
now, I think it's under control. I'll tell you what.
How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day.
Okay, so what does he mean by it's under control?
The problem is that, and by the way, this interviewer, I don't know where he got the strength and the courage to sit there and talk over the president of the United States in an interview, but thank you to that individual for doing a fantastic job. I mean, he's exactly right. If under control is 10,000 deaths a day, then I guess that's under control.
1,000
or 1,000 deaths a day, then I guess it's under control. But the thing is, I don't even think Trump has an understanding of what this is. Like, I genuinely think Trump he wants to just win re-election, and he wants people to shut up about it. Like, he just wants to win re-election and just stop talking about it. It'll blow over eventually. And when he's asked tough questions, you can see he starts going into well, what is your definition of control? It's like he starts asking those questions that you would see other individuals who may not have good answers ask those questions, and they're like, well, what is that? Well, what is really the definition of that? Those sorts of things. And it can be useful for a conversation at the beginning, but you're the president of the United States. You define what control is. You tell us what it is. Like, you're in the highest position of power in America, man. You got to do better than just saying, I don't know what control means. I don't know if I have it under control, but I said I did. I don't know if I do, though. Like, it's that sort of thing.
I think he's genuine. I don't want to speak for who he is as a person, but from appearances, what I think is he's just potentially scared to admit that he doesn't have it under control, and he just wants to reaffirm his base. And that's one of the problems here is you notice on many occasions they'll just directly repeat what he says, and you just want to ask, like, okay, well, what's under control? Why is America great? It's constant assertions from our president without actually without ever actually backing anything up.
You're dying. That's true. And it is what it is. But that doesn't mean we aren't doing everything we can. When I took over, we didn't even have a test. Now, in all fairness,
why would you have a test?
There was no test.
The virus
for
didn't
this.
exist. How would you have a test?
I was going to say.
Okay. Death is going up. There's 1,000
Can you
a
pause
day.
really quickly?
Death.
Yeah, it's going up again.
Yeah.
First of all, fantastic pointing out by the interviewer. Like, he's doing a fantastic job. Also, what Trina said, right? because I want to address this, because she's like, you do this all the time with definitions. The problem isn't asking for the definition of a word. That's totally fine. We do that all the time in our big atheist religious debates, whatever. But the reason why asking for a definition here is stupid is because he's quoting Trump. He's saying, you said you had this under control. And Trump is saying, what do you mean by control? Right? So if you say something and then someone asks you what you mean and you say, well, what is my definition of control? It's like, what are you talking about? That's the problem with what he said. It wasn't that he asked for a definition. That would be totally reasonable by any standard. But what's not reasonable is making a statement about having something under control, being challenged about that statement, and then walking back to your own definitions and questioning what the interviewer means by what you said, which is the issue that I took with it. Also, call in, Trina, please.
Yeah, that would be awesome. All right, here we go. Where am I at?
Let's look.
Daily death.
Take a look at some of these charts.
I'd love to.
We're going to look.
Let's look.
And if you look at death,
Yeah. Started to go up
here's
again.
one. Well, right here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories.
Lower than
We're
the
lower
world.
than
What is that?
Europe.
In what?
Look,
In what?
take a look.
Dude, the president is handing graphs to an
Yeah.
interviewer trying to excuse what he's done.
Talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US
My
is really
favorite.
bad.
Well,
Much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
you can't do that. You have
Why
to go,
can't I do that?
You have to go by. You have to go by where. Look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases. The cases.
Why
are
not
there.
as a proportion of
When we have
population?
somebody, what it says is when you have somebody that
Yeah.
has where there's a case.
Oh, okay.
The people that live
Sure.
from
Oh.
those cases.
It's surely a relevant statistic to say if the US has X population and X percentage of death of that population
No, because
versus
you
South
have to
Korea.
go by the cases.
Well, look at South Korea,
If-
for example. 51 million population, 300 deaths. It's like, it's crazy.
You don't
compared to
know
other countries.
that.
I do. It's
You
on.
don't know
it's-
that.
You think they're faking their statistics, South Korea?
I
An
won't get
advanced
into
country?
that because I have a very good relationship
Yeah.
with the country, but you don't know that.
1,000 Americans are dying a day. But I understand on cases, it's different.
No, but you're not reporting it correctly, Jonathan.
I think I am, but it's been widely reported that the US has intelligence indicating that Russia paid bounties or offered to pay bounties to Taliban fighters to kill American
Right.
soldiers.
Mhm.
You had a phone call with Vladimir Putin on July 23rd. Did you bring up this issue?
No, that was a phone call to discuss other things.
And you've never discussed it with him?
I have never discussed it with him. No. I would. I'd have no problem with it.
But you don't
But you
believe
know,
the
it
intelligence?
never
It's because
got
you
to
don't
me.
believe the intelligence. That's why.
It never reached my
Okay.
desk. You know why? Because they didn't think it was intelligence. They didn't think it was real.
It was in
They
your
didn't
written
think-
brief, though.
They
apparently.
didn't think it was worthy of. I wouldn't mind if it reached my desk. I would have done something about it. It never reached my desk because
Do you read your written brief?
I do. I
Do you?
read a lot.
Really?
You know, I read a lot. They like to say I don't read. I read a lot.
Your
I
daily intelligence
comprehend
brief?
extraordinarily well. Probably better than anybody that you've interviewed in a long time. I did more for the.
Okay, sorry. This is where his language just drives me nuts. Why is everything a competition with this man? Like he reads better or comprehends better than anyone, better than any other interviewer? Like, what is the purpose of that?
Oh yeah, that's annoying. But the more concerning thing is that he doesn't even understand what he's talking about. Like even at a base level, like and like he brings up in South Korea, you have 53 million people with 300 deaths, and then he goes, well, how do you know we can trust those statistics? And then he's like, wait a minute, no, I'm an ally with South Korea. I need to walk that back now because I need to show that I trust South Korea, but also I don't like the statistics that don't support my narrative, right?
Right.
So as soon as the statistics don't support his narrative, they're fake. They're absolutely fake. And the truth of the matter is either you trust South Korea and the information they put out, or you don't. If you don't, then you can question the statistics. Like I would question like North Korean statistics, of course. But South Korea is a developed country with fully developed infrastructure. And you're going to say that that government, the government that you're directly allies with, is faking statistical information for COVID-19? Why should we trust the US's information then that you so like to tout?
You know, Christian, I don't know where you fit all this information in your head at such a young age. I really
Right
don't.
about here. So, somewhere like here.
So, Trina, no matter who the president is, could get this virus under control. Well, I guess that's where we'd have to agree on what's under control. But if we are doing one of the worst jobs, wouldn't that speak to the quality the president is doing when other countries seem to be getting it under control better? And yes, we couldn't say it's up to the people. Yeah. Well, it's also up to Donald Trump. How many times has he made comments about people not wearing masks or not making a big deal about this situation? All he's had to do this entire time is get on stage and tell the American people to wear a mask. Had he done that, his base would now be wearing a mask, in my opinion.
Okay, so it's not up to the people, right? The reason why it's not up to the people is because Trump has direct control over 30 to 40% of the populace. If he tells them what to do, chances are, unless it's ridiculous, they're gonna heed his advice. Even if they're a little cautious at first, I would say that they would do that. So when Trump says directly he doesn't believe that the virus is real in the beginning, and then he goes into talking about how it's real, but it's a hoax, and the media is propagating a lie, and then now it's just the statistics are mostly fake, right? Like this isn't accountability. This isn't a presidency. Like some people would call this a joke, what's happening right now. And to say that the president isn't responsible is basically like saying you're building a building, right? And you say the foreman isn't responsible for what his underlings do. And it's like, in a way, he's not directly responsible, but he puts them in positions. He controls the narrative. He controls what comes out to make the citizens with the ability to have an informed opinion. So if a foreman were to give his workers a blueprint that's screwed up, messed up, and completely nonsense, would you blame the workers for not following and building the building correctly? No, you wouldn't. Because we understand that leadership at the top level is incredibly important, especially in a country like America, where politics is mostly cultural, not policy-based.
Good news. We got our next caller.
Oh, okay. Let's do this.
Reminder, trigger warning. These calls are auto-screened through an automated system, so anything can happen. I feel like I know this name, but I don't want to say it in case I'm wrong. Eddie?
Hey.
Is this the GOD?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew you got a shout out on your show from the one and only provable GOD, and that I think Trump is an orange idiot.
Why? All right, so that's a statement. Why or claim? Why do you think he's an orange idiot?
I've heard him speak.
Well, I would agree with you there. Could you give a specific example?
All right, specific example. Hydrochloroquine does nothing to cure the cooties that are going around the entire world at the moment. I don't care what he says, how much money he's being paid to say it, or anything like that. Other examples, for him to claim that the, issues in our country right now have nothing to do with race, it's just a bunch of people wanting to cause trouble, makes him an idiot.
It makes him uninformed, I would say. Would be what I would say. I would say that he clearly doesn't have a grasp of understanding of issues that really matter, and it's obvious, and he demonstrates that every time that he talks about an issue beyond how great he is.
Yeah. If he's not tooting his own horn or having other people toot his horn for him, he really doesn't care to hear anything.
Right.
And in my opinion, that makes him an idiot.
Clarification from audience member. Trina would say he's more peach than anything.
Huh.
Now that's the real issue in this country.
I don't know.
What color is the president?
Might have to adjust the color on my TV.
No, it is fairly orange. Although I'd rather talk not necessarily about his physical appearance, but him as a person, individual, or Biden. So I guess the question is, are you voting for Biden?
No, I'm going to vote independent.
Jesus Christ.
Here, someone I'm leaning towards agreeing with. I haven't fully decided yet. Like,
Okay.
I shouldn't say leaning. I'm
To me,
genuinely
it's
undecided.
simple. There's two options in this
I
election.
know everybody
Nobody else has a
tell
chance.
me that I'm wasting my vote.
No, it's not
And
that you're wasting your vote.
you can tell
It's
me I'm
actually worse
wasting
than
my
that.
vote all you want. And exactly my point. That's not a wasted vote. That's my vote. I get to do what I want with it.
You can do what you want for it, but I'd
I'm
like to make
going
a
to vote
compelling argument why
independent.
you should vote for Biden.
Ooh.
Well, I don't think I will vote for Biden because he's been in Washington way too long. And in my opinion, he hasn't done anything to help this country. He's made things so much worse, especially with the laws that he passed to help incarcerate people
The
that
crime
shouldn't
bill,
be there
was it
for
like
years on end.
1994
I
crime bill?
agree.
Is that right?
I'm not going to sit
Yep.
here and defend Biden's record, but what I will say is there's two people who have a chance of winning this election. It's Donald Trump and Joe Biden. You can vote for somebody else. You can write in somebody, you can vote independent, but at the end of the day, there is two options in this election that actually have a chance of winning this election. Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I look at it this way. I have two primary reasons why I'm voting for Joe Biden. The first is the Supreme Court. I don't want to see a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court, and I want to see a Supreme Court that moves more towards the left as opposed to moving towards the right. That also includes my reasoning with appellate courts and lower district courts where Trump has appointed over 300 judges, which will forever stack conservative judges in those lower courts. 4 more years of that could do irrevocable damage to the appellate courts. Secondly, the second big reason why I think you should vote for Biden as opposed to voting third party is this. Every single time that Donald Trump convinces someone to vote for him, we have to think of the record that Donald Trump has. And you could critique Biden's record all day long. But to me, it's simple. If you vote for Trump, you're eating a full plate of garbage. If you vote for Joe Biden, you're eating a 3/4 of a plate of garbage, right? It's still trash, and I'm not going to try to convince you that it isn't garbage. But I want you to have the integrity as a person who cares about people in the LGBTQ community, people in those marginalized community, to have the moral courage to vote for somebody who at very least, defends some basic liberal principles, at very least.
I don't know if I agree with this. So, okay, I want to be very clear here. I am genuinely torn on if I should vote for Biden or if I should go with independent, because I am struggling to vote for somebody that I do not stand behind, a system that I do not stand behind. And I feel like not only is that doing, the country a disservice, but I feel like it's doing myself a disservice as well. Just accepting what's happening right now. This is not okay. Biden, in my opinion, is not necessarily the best human being. Why would we just say, oh, well, he's better than Trump, so I guess we'll vote for him?
Because being better than Trump is important, right? Being better than Trump is important in the sense that the Supreme Court decides laws the Supreme Court decides rulings on various pieces of legislation that directly affect people. They directly affect people. We just had one in respect to sexual identity that was shot down by the Supreme Court at a 5-4 vote. It's not like it's just as easy as saying, I'm not going to vote for Trump or Biden, and therefore I'm rejecting the status quo. The status quo continues whether or not you participate or not. It still continues. So either you gain the moral courage, in my opinion, the moral courage to say, I'm going to swallow my pride and vote for someone that I don't like because I can't have it on my conscience to say that I didn't play a part in removing Trump from office.
I partially agree with that, but I also feel that's more an emotional appeal and not necessarily
policy. It's absolutely I just named you Supreme Court policy. I can name you climate policy. I can name you appellate court policy. I just named many different reasons to vote for Biden based on purely policy. And I could make arguments against Trump's character. I don't care. I
No,
care
but
about
it seems like
policy.
you're making an emotional appeal, saying, you have to have the moral integrity
You
um,
do.
do
It's
this.
hard. It's a
Now,
hard decision.
so you're saying that from now on, going forward, in every election, I have to have the moral integrity to vote for somebody I don't stand for the good of this country, based on a system of two people that I do not stand for.
If you have a situation where there is a bad option and not as bad of an option, the reason why it's called the lesser of two evils is because you recognize that more evil is worse than less evil. By not voting, you're not endorsing any particular person, but you are saying, in a sense, that even though the status quo is going to continue, I don't want my hands in making the status quo as best as we possibly can make it.
All right, let's put this on a larger scale for a second, and let's whether you like this person or not, let's talk about his reach. The Rock is one of the biggest influencers in the world and has his hands on everything. Let's say right now he decided to run for president, and people like you and me were like, yeah, this guy has the money, he has the backing, he has the reach, and he is clearly and has a track record of doing good things for people. You're saying that would be a wasted vote if we could get someone like that to make a large enough, someone who can make a large impact. If we rallied behind that, would you still think that's wasted?
Dwayne Johnson was a wrestler.
I didn't say you support him. I'm just using him as an
Ronald Reagan
example.
was an actor.
That's even worse.
Okay, again, Christian, I'm not saying you support The Rock. I'm not saying you want The Rock to run. I'm saying consider his reach and his track record of genuinely just being a good human being. Based off that reach, if people like you and I worked together and fought to work on someone like him and vote for him, you don't think that could make a shift in the political arena?
Maybe. I'd have to see evidence for that sort of thing. Because at this point, we're saying in a hypothetical world where Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson runs, can win, would win, and has reach, that would affect an electorate, right? Those are four claims, right? That things that could happen. What I'll say here is we live in the present. We live in a status quo, right? We live in a reality. I think we can all acknowledge that. And the reality of the situation is that the time to register in every state for being on the ballot in November has either passed or is passing in a couple days. This is our locked-in options. There is no savior for that. There is no The Rock savior that's coming in. And I'm trying to make a policy appeal. And if it sounds like an emotional appeal, then sure, take the emotional appeal. All I'm saying is, if you vote for Biden, you're at very least doing harm reduction. Would I prefer to have more bold progressive change? Of course. Is anyone saying that they wouldn't? All I'm saying is that if you have a choice between harm reduction and harm endorsement, I'm going to reduce harm every single time.
I get where you're going. I'm just, you haven't really. Sorry, Gio, go ahead.
My viewpoint is, if we can get more people to understand that this is not a two-party system, then we might actually reach a change in this country, because there aren't just two parties. And nobody seems to remember that anymore. Everybody's so focused on who the rich guy is on the TV. That's all they see anymore. And they need to start actually doing their own research and critical thinking and realize there is more than two candidates. And somebody else might be a whole lot better than both of them put together.
I agree. And maybe a change like that could start with rank change voting. That would give us more options, less attacking each other.
Yeah, but that shouldn't stop you from voting from Biden, though. That shouldn't stop you from voting against Trump.
Move my needle. I'm still struggling. So even Puck says I'm making an emotional appeal in the audience, that voting for someone is an endorsement of the character. That's absolutely, in my opinion, if I'm voting for someone, I'm supporting them as a person and politician. That if he becomes president, he is now going to be looked to. Children are going to listen to him as a leader, as an example. So his policies aren't the only thing that should be factored here. His character needs to be put into consideration.
Voting for somebody is not an endorsement of everything they've ever done. It's just not, right? You can give your own reasons for why you're voting for someone, and voting for someone isn't implicitly endorsing everything they've said. Just like retweeting someone isn't the same thing as endorsing everything they've ever tweeted. Like that's just not how that works. So what I would say is, I can give you compelling reasons why I think Biden should be president in 2020, and all of that can still be with the recognition that Biden has been an absolutely garbage politician for the past 30 years.
God,
Well, I'm going to leave you guys with one last thought, and then I got to get off the phone. In my honest, personal opinion, coming from the background that I have and the people that I used to deal with, I don't care which one of these racists get elected, they're going to rip this country apart.
I have to disagree. I do care which one of them gets elected.
Yeah, I gotta say right now, I'm God. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too, man. Nice talking to you. So all right, I gotta say, Christian, I need you to move my needle on this one, because this is literally a back and forth battle with me every day, where I see Trump talk and I'm like, okay, we have got to get rid of this man at any cost. I have to vote for Biden. But then I see Biden talk and I'm like,
that's still a bad reason. Both of those are bad reasons to vote for Trump or Biden. How they talk are bad reasons, because how they talk is not affecting people's lives like policy is.
Okay, that's true.
So I'm voting for Biden for policy reasons, because I believe that even though Biden is a centrist, corporatist Democrat, that's a million times better than an unhinged right-wing politician who's passing policies on climate, who's passing policies on regulation, deregulating businesses, removing standards that have existed for the longest time. And the worst possible thing that he's doing is putting 300 judges on a court that are going to serve for life. That's a policy that's going to affect people.
That's true.
That's why I'm voting for Biden.
So, okay. To be clear then, you would agree that Biden is not an ideal candidate and not someone you actually want to vote for, but I
hate Joe Biden.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's kind of where I was wondering.
I hate Joe Biden and I hate Donald Trump, but I'm at least reasonable enough to understand that it's clear which one of them is doing more damage to the country.
I agree with you. And I don't think it's good to say I'm reasonable enough. I'm not arguing.
I think it's fair, but
I'm not arguing that that they're both the exact amount of evil. I agree. Donald Trump is more harmful to this country than Biden, but I am genuinely tired of this two-party rhetoric. I mean, you go no further than Facebook and look how vicious people are to each other. It's starts, I don't know, the change has to start at the bottom. And I feel like we're just contributing to a never-ending circle jerk that is harming our country. And it's just this back and forth game, like a bunch of children on the playground throwing rocks at each other. We need to get rid of the Democratic and Republican Party. And I feel like that starts with a third party.
That doesn't start with reelecting Trump, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. Trump, I do not.
There we go,
Trump,
right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't start with reelecting Trump, then you have to pick the better of two options.
So are you, I guess, let me ask you this then. Let's say this election, I decide to vote for Joe Biden and I end up agreeing with you and saying this Trump needs to be removed. Are you going to be saying the same thing the next election?
Ideally, no, because ideally I'd be doing activism to change the choices.
Okay.
But if it were to come down to it again, and it was, some crazy right-winger versus a centrist Democrat, of course, because I understand that politics are a game of pragmatism. They're a game of voting for the best person, even if you don't like them both.
Right.
This isn't the time to protest an ideology. This is the time to fix people's lives.
To an extent, I agree with you. Would you like to answer Trina's question?
Yeah, I'll give you 5. Hold on. The first reason is the Supreme Court. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you actually prefer a conservative Supreme Court. But coming from my perspective, I want to see a Supreme Court that's willing to protect a woman's right to choose and religious freedoms and atheist freedoms, in the sense that there's a separation of church and state. The Supreme Court is leaning towards a Supreme Court that won't do that. It's really problematic. That's the first reason. The second reason is the appellate court. It's a separate reason because it's not necessarily the Supreme Court. These are smaller courts that Trump can elect directly from the executive chair. He's at about 300. These people that he's electing are not actual lawyers. They're not actual judges. They're people that he's putting in for political reasons, trying to establish a stacked appellate court that will vote against things that I'm sure you even treasure, for example. Regardless of that, that's more of my particular reasons. Here's 3 other good reasons. I'm assuming that you're not in favor of interventionism inside of Yemen. Perhaps you are in favor of the Yemen genocide. I wouldn't think you would be. Joe Biden has pledged to end it, and he has complete congressional approval, right? So if Joe Biden ends the genocide in Yemen, we see a net positive of lives saved, and we see a net loss of intervention in the world. And I want to see less intervention in the world, more intervention here at home with infrastructure. The fourth reason is healthcare. I want to see universal healthcare, but at least Joe Biden's going to establish a robust public option. Even though I don't think it's far enough, I think we need to have better healthcare in general. But once again, you can settle with something just a little bit better than what we have right now. Trump's deregulated healthcare system is an absolute mess. It's an absolute tragedy, right? So if we can push for Biden, who's going to do his public option, it's going to cover about 11 million more Americans coming out of a pandemic. That's going to be so super helpful. I think it's a really good reason to vote for Biden. The fifth reason is even more policy. I would say that Joe Biden is especially good on climate policy. I want to see more vouchers going towards green energy and less vouchers going towards coal and oil energy. This is something that Joe Biden has pledged to do. He did it under the Obama administration. I'm talking really quickly. I'm so sorry. I'm talking like extraordinarily quickly, but I'm trying to get all of them out. So to recap, climate policy, Joe Biden's better on. Supreme Court policy, appellate court policy. You can go back to economic policy. All of those are reasons to vote for Joe Biden. And none of them require you to dislike Trump. They're all independent reasons why you would say Trump's policy is just better under that framework. Now, there is reasons to vote against Trump. I don't care about those reasons. I care about the reasons why Joe Biden would be better, and that's 5. 6, technically. I gave you 1 extra. But
I feel like there was one, she said, don't bring up Trump and give more specific reasons other than he's better than Trump. I think you did. I believe there was one lumped in there that you brought Trump into, but at the same time, he's giving a comparative base on what he think will happen between if Donald Trump stays in versus Joe Biden.
Tell you what, if you can give me reasons to vote for Trump that don't include Joe Biden having dementia, I'll give you $10,000.
You might want to correct that. You don't have $10,000 for 1, and 2.
I am so confident that you cannot give me a reason why Trump is better than Joe Biden without talking about his personal character.
Good reason. You should say good reason, because anyone can give you a reason.
Isn't that what I said? I feel like I said good reason. I mean compelling / good reason.
There we go. Okay. And just to be clear, Christian's Promise right now has nothing to do with this news channel, who will not be responsible for handing out $10,000. That is on Christian. Yeah. So Trina, that's actually a really good idea. What if you call and give your reasons why you're voting for Donald Trump? A compelling, good reason, or anyone watching.
Wait, is she voting for Donald Trump?
I don't want to. You know what? She said it repeatedly, so I'm pretty sure I can speak for her in this occasion. Yes, she is voting for Donald Trump. So far, the only thing I've been able to move her needle on is health care and why universal health care is important. So maybe you can help me out.
I don't get it, right? I could see Ethan's position of not voting for Joe Biden because he's terrible. Like I could get that position, but directly endorsing Trump, did we not just go through the entirety of coronavirus? Did we not see the genocide in Yemen? Did we not see the protectionist, disastrous trade policies with China? Did we not see the scapegoating of the media? Are we just blind to all this? Did we just forget about this when coronavirus hits, and we just forget that Trump did consistent systemic damage to the electorate for 3 years? Do we just forget about this? I feel like we just completely and totally forget about it for some reason. I honestly don't understand.
I would actually be curious to find, and I don't know if anyone's done this. Maybe Christian, you could enlighten me. How many promises from before election has he kept? Like, I don't want to just regurgitate through his normal Mexico will pay for the wall, all that. But realistically,
There's nothing wrong with voting for Trump for the first time. What Trina just said. There's nothing wrong with voting for Trump for the first time because Trump was an unknown quantity. We had no reason to know what he would do. All we
Right.
knew was his rhetoric, right? Now that we've seen a presidency under Trump, still voting for Trump is, in my personal opinion, and this is unpopular. I think it's crazy. Now you can say that's too extreme.
Let's not say crazy. You disagree.
That's why I said it was my opinion. I'm not saying it's YFNA News' opinion or your opinion. I'm saying it's my opinion. I think it's reckless, dangerous, and crazy.
You know, Christian, the one thing I'm liking about you and me right now is I feel like I end up being a bit of the centrist here, and you and
Yeah,
I
it's so
don't
disgusting. I hate
necessarily
it.
do as much. What's
I'm just kidding. I was messing with you. I was like, it's so disgusting. I hate it. But
No, I like this because it's nice to see that you and I don't actually agree on everything.
oh, of course, we're different people. I mean,
No, I know, but I mean, typically, sorry, it's nice to finally find something we disagree on.
yeah.
So
I would say that's awesome.
hopefully, we've got a few months here. I would definitely like to continue to hear your arguments on why I should vote for Joe Biden at this point. Because again, it doesn't have to be today, but just over the next few months, I'd like to see my needle moved there because I'm leaning that direction, but I'm still not sold. Like, I don't know when it comes down to that voting booth. Christian.
Dude, it's so irresponsible.
Okay, and I could say it's irresponsible of you to continue to contribute to a two-party system.
That's fine. If that's irresponsible, I'd rather help people and be irresponsible than
I
hurt
want to
people and
help
be
people
irresponsible.
too. Okay, so yours could be we could argue that yours is the immediate Band-Aid fix, and mine is the long-term fix, helping people in the longer
Yeah,
run.
because I understand that you can't do heart surgery until you close the wound.
Okay, that's a fair point. But
no,
how
it's fine.
many wounds are we going to sit here closing until we try and fix the system in and of itself?
I mean, you can try to do heart surgery right away with no doctor, but I mean, you have fun doing that. But I'm going to close the wound first and get some qualified people in here.
What we need to do for this show, Christian, is start reaching out to more conservatives and more extremist left and extremist right people. And we need to bring them on here, like seek them out, ask them to call in and start talking to them. Because to me, that's where the real change is. We got to get those extremists, particularly the extremists on the right, because some of them, while the left scares me in many ways, the extremist right scares me a little bit more.
It's not a little bit for me. I'm absolutely terrified of the extremist right, and I think the extremist left is a little overblown by people.
Oh, so I would agree that it can be overblown. However, at the same time, there are some extremist, violent leftists that it sickens me that I can get lumped in with those people. Like, I am not that leftist. Like, I would consider, I don't know, I guess the best way, and I hate to put a label on it, would be left of center. I don't know. I guess I do have some leftist policies because I am typically, trigger word warning, a democratic socialist, which I know upsets people. But yeah, are you one too?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, you're not a communist though, are you?
No, I have many critiques of Marx theory.
I have a friend I would actually love to see you talk communism with. Maybe I can get him to co-host with you sometime and replace him.
Interesting.
You two would make I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he'll publicly say this, but if this person is watching, let me know if you'd ever want to talk to or be a co-host on this show with Christian. An
Just for
episode,
clarity.
and we could go over communism versus socialism. Like, I would love that.
Just for clarity, I'm for social democracy, which is implementing strong social policies through the guise of the people's choice.
Well, and see here,
Not the guise, through the mechanism, not a guise.
and this is where the right drives me nuts, and they view socialism just as this communist ideology. They think the two are the same. And additionally, they just think it's this, hey, let's give everything for free. And to me, their mentality is very dated. They still have this winner take all, me, what about me, versus, hey, if we work together to help each other because we are a civilized society, we can actually get somewhere.
Maybe we're civilized. I'm starting to believe that less and less every day.
We are, but I feel like in many ways, things like Facebook is tearing each other apart because it gives people the courage to say things to you that they wouldn't say to your face. And additionally, it's like I watch so many arguments and people go back and forth and they're literally just, neither of them is getting what the other person is saying. They're talking past each other and they're getting angrier and angrier. And then you got the left, and this is where they drive me nuts. Anytime they talk to a Republican or someone voting for Trump, it's automatically, oh, you're racist. Like, we need to stop that crap. Just because someone, in my opinion, votes for Trump doesn't make them racist. Now, are they supporting someone I believe is racist? Yes. Do I think they're aware that he is racist or that they are supporting someone with racist characteristics? No. So that's why I get really annoyed, and I feel that doesn't actually contribute anything to the conversation. Moreover, if you're going to call somebody racist, you need to explain why they're racist. If you can't, then don't call them that.
I agree with that. Can we put up Puck's comment?
Oh, yeah. Where is it? Which one?
The one he recently posted. Nope. You're way up in the chat.
Oh, we have to wait for it to come into StreamYard. There's like a 20-second delay between
Okay,
YouTube.
I see. Well, basically, he said, just speaking for me, but if I could have all my basic needs taken care of without having to work, there goes my incentive to work. How do you remedy that? It's a good question. It's a question that I had before I was a social democrat. The answer is pretty simple. The reason why you should work is not because you have a necessity to work, otherwise you die. The reason why you should work is because you love what you do. And I don't think that it's a particularly good argument to say that, well, if people weren't starving, then what incentive would they have to work? And it's like, doesn't seem very pragmatic or very helpful to a society. Because if you were to say, the reason why you have to have a capital incentive is because if people didn't have the incentive that they could starve, they wouldn't work. And it's like, but we already have social programs with people who get social benefits, but also work. Work should be a function of what you love to do. Ethan should be able to. We do. Ethan should be able to do this podcast thing as his work, while also not having to worry about starving tomorrow if he doesn't actually have a job that pays for every single part of his necessary life. So that's just to me how I look at it.
That seems, and maybe I don't want to misrepresent you here, but that seems kind of like what I'm hearing is Ethan should be able to have fun and not have to worry about anything.
You shouldn't have to starve if you don't work.
I agree with you, but then how do we incentivize people to work? Because while I'd like to optimistically think that the best option is to provide all these necessities for people, and I would stand behind that, even if it necessarily created more, let's say, people willing to just live off the system. I hope it doesn't. But
it's not a thing, right? Living off the system isn't a thing, right? Okay. Getting food from the government and not starving isn't living off the system.
Okay, so then how do we incentivize people to work if right now they're at home, their basic needs are taken care of, and now what they're doing is just doing what I'm doing? Let's say they just want to be on YouTube all day, or they just want to stream, video games, whatever it is. How do we get that person to work and contribute to society if we are literally giving them all their necessities for free and they have no reason to work? That's my question.
I'll say it again. The reason why you should be incentivized to work is not because you would starve or lose your house or lose your children's college fund if you didn't. That shouldn't be the reason. The reason why you should work is because you love what you do or because you want to help people. That should be the reason why you work. Now, here's the thing. My grandmother upstairs, she's been working for 35 years at a daycare. She's wanted to retire for the last 5 years because she can't do it anymore. She has really, really bad knees, and it's really tough on her. And some days she gets really emotional and sad because she wants to be able to rest and relax, and she can't do it. Now, if you want to say that giving her her basic needs met is not allowing her to work, my easiest response would be, why should she have to?
So in your grandmother's position, I agree. The elderly elderly and disabled should be taken care of. Your grandmother should not have to worry about this. And it drives me nuts that she does. That's sad. My grandma or my mother shouldn't have to worry about these things at their age. We live in a society where we should have the options to take care of these people. However,
She wouldn't have the incentive to work, so why isn't that freeloading?
again, that's a different scenario. She's spent her life working. She's disabled. She shouldn't have to at this point. And I'm okay with that. I'm right now fine with giving up a larger portion in taxes and my money if it guarantees the elderly are going to be fed, clothed, have a home over their head, and have food in their belly. I'm okay with that because I'm not a selfish person. I'm fine if it's for the betterment of society.
Why just the elderly, though?
That's okay. So here's what I'm trying to say though, is right now you're saying that, hey, everyone should just want to work because they love what they do. Someone is going to have to sweep the floors. Someone's going to have to clean the toilets. We have to, not everyone's going to be able to enjoy what they do. So how do we get those people who don't have a job that they want to do to work?
We're moving out of we're moving out of a necessity economy, and we're moving into a specialization economy. And it's no secret that we're going to start having automation and things like that start taking care of those very menial jobs that nobody wants to do. And that to me is the correct way to go as a society. Now, already we have people like you. You don't provide an essential service. You
Yes, I do.
you create YouTube content. See, that's the thing, right? You
My
can say that you
full-time
do.
job. No, my
No, for
full-time
this
job.
job, for this job,
Okay, all right,
for
sorry.
this one, you don't provide an essential service here, but you still love doing it, and you make some money doing it, and that sort of thing's fine. I'm not saying that we should give every single individual everything they want. All I'm saying is that in America today, you shouldn't have to work to avoid starvation or homelessness. That's
I
all I'm saying, regardless of the age that you are.
I agree, but we also have to take a realistic approach at this and make sure we find a way to ensure that people are contributing to society. So I didn't want to go over, but we're going to have to go over time because we have two callers. So let's start with Kenneth. You are on with Christian and Ethan. How are you?
Hey, Kenneth.
You maniacs. So I tuned in kind of late. You guys were talking about this whole lesser of two evils thing with Donald Trump and our crazy Uncle Joe. But then you guys started talking about, UBI. Did I miss some sort of segment where you guys were like going down their like Andrew Yang train here?
I actually don't support UBI. I don't think that it's a particularly effective solution in relieving poverty, especially in communities of color. I don't think it will exactly do the job. When there's disproportionate lack of wealth, a uniform answer isn't exactly the solution that I would go for. But I wasn't advocating for that. What I was saying is that I'm for social democracy. I think basic needs should be met by the government, including things like healthcare, food. And I don't think that's crazy. And I don't think you should have to be old before the government cares about you.
Well, I would agree with you there. I'm sort of on the fence about UBI. I think that the arguments that I've heard in favor of something like UBI make a lot of sense to me. And when you're talking about incentives for working beyond having your basic needs met, the thing that immediately came to my mind was, I like material things. I like stuff. And once my basic needs are met, that's cool and everything. But if I want to have a nice house or a big TV or a sweet car or whatever, that's still on me, beyond my basic needs. And I think that as long as we have, a fairly materialistic society, people will still, even if they hate what they do, will still want to be working to reach other, goals, whether financial or materialistic, goals. Those incentives aren't going anywhere.
Christian?
I agree with him. I think it's really well explained. I want to see what Ethan has to say.
I apologize. I was replying to the comments at that moment.
I mean, I was reading something recently about how the famous tennis player Andre Agassi, in his biography, said that he for his entire life absolutely hated playing tennis. There's one of the best golfers in the world, Rory McIlroy, has talked publicly about not particularly enjoying golf. But these guys are out there doing this thing because they're good at it, because they can make millions of dollars doing it at the level that they are, even though to them, they're before.
I mean, I just want to say, to just respond really quickly to what Puck had said. And this is kind of what Kenneth is saying too. If the incentive for your system is that people have to work to not starve, it's not a good incentive. It's not a good long-term incentive. You have to build in better incentives than if you don't work, we're not going to help you, you're going to starve, you're screwed. Right? The incentive should be things like what Kenneth said and the things that I propose, either loving that you're doing it, or because you're good at it, or because it's something that you can do to get extra stuff, to get the things that aren't basic necessities, to get wants and things like that. The idea that if you gave people a basic standard of living, that they would stop working, not only isn't true in theory, but we have data from countries who already provide these services where people don't stop working.
Yeah, and it's the same thing as, I mean, there's arguments about, if we make a bachelor's degree level education available, at no out-of-pocket cost, in public universities, then it will, oversaturate the labor market, and people won't, it will devalue the education to a certain extent. These arguments are ultimately they're bad. I think that there's a million reasons to incentivize people to keep working even after their basic needs are met, and everything that I've seen about the forgetting about the sort of like immediate obvious financial benefits to people having their basic needs met. When you look at things like how that can impact crime statistics, how it takes burdens off of social services, the arguments are out there, and they're good. That if for every dollar that you pay to somebody in meeting a basic need, there's a net gain exponentially in terms of taking pressures off of taxpayers, taking pressures off of social services that are ultimately less efficient in meeting people's basic needs.
Real quick, sorry, we just lost a caller. Trina, I was about to put you on with Kenneth as well. So if you could quickly call back, that would be awesome.
And just, can we just talk really briefly about the lesser of two evils thing, and why that's just a bad argument? Because, I mean, one of these two guys is going to be the next president. And every time I hear people talk about a lesser of two evils thing, like it was, I mean, that was how so much conversation was framed in the last election about Hillary and Donald. And, it was always, in my experience, framed in terms of talking about them as people and not in terms of their policies. And ultimately, the policies are what we need to be looking at, because that's what's going to actually tangibly affect the lives of, a few 100 million people. When you can look at the actual platforms and the policies that these two individuals are standing behind, it becomes very clear very quickly who is the more responsible choice to vote for. I can't make an endorsement of anybody because I'm a government employee, but when you look at when you look at policies, that's huge. And then the other thing, Ethan, that I think will, I hope, move your needle is between the two choices that we have. Biden has a healthy respect for deferring to experts, and that he has done that, throughout his entire career. The legacy of Joe Biden is that he will be firmly in the middle of whatever the sort of liberal consensus is at any given point in time. I mean, people point back at his stances on things like drugs and crime from back in the 80s and 90s. But if you look at that sort of contextually, Biden was right smack dab in the middle of what was considered to be acceptable on the left at that time. Biden will go wherever the people kind of want him to go. And when faced with crises, he will defer to experts. He recognizes that there are people out there who have already sort of done the intellectual work for him, and he is comfortable, putting those people in charge. And that, to me, is maybe the best case that can be made pro Biden, is that he will, recognize his limitations and has a healthy respect for expertise.
Right. That's actually a very good point. Christian, why couldn't you say that? That right there, Kenneth.
I'm not as smart as Kenneth.
Is a very good selling point. No one is as smart as Kenneth.
No, stop it. The points that Christian made, especially about the courts, cannot be overstated in terms of their impact. I've heard people say you're not voting for the next president, you're voting for Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement. That is very, very true. And what he was saying about appellate judges is huge. Fully more than a quarter of all appellate judges now are Trump appointees. He said it when he was running. The Senate is behind him. Mitch McConnell has been very vocal about this, that essentially the entire purpose of the Senate right now is just to confirm as many conservative judges as they possibly can. They've not been sneaky about it at all. It's absolutely overt. This is what they exist to do right now. So, I mean, that is something to be very mindful of, because, the courts, they decide what the law is, so.
Well, thank you, Kenneth. And I do hate to cut this short, but I have to actually fly out the door and get to an appointment as quickly as possible. But Kenneth, I always appreciate when you call in. You have so much insight to offer.
Being appreciated is almost always good. So,
Kenneth, I appreciate you. Wait, nope. I take that back. I take that back.
Later.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in, Kenneth. Talk to you soon.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
All right. Sorry to cut this abrupt, but I actually really do have to fly out the door right now, everyone. So I want to thank my co-host, Christian. And Christian, I got a surprise for you, and I am excited to hear your genuine reaction to this. Guess who your co-host is going to be on Political Perspectives next week?
Can I guess?
Yes, I'll give you one guess.
Trina.
Dean Meadows.
Oh, Dean.
So next week, you will see Dean Meadows taking over my spot, and and he'll be co-hosting with Christian, and then we truly will have two political perspectives. Although surprisingly, Christian and I disagreed a good amount, which I'm excited to dive into more and find out more about.
What are you voting for?
You haven't sold me on Biden yet.
Jesus
I'm sorry.
Christ. Okay.
No,
I'm not going to host next week. No, I'm just kidding.
Everyone, make sure you like and subscribe. Consider becoming a patron. The links are in the description. You can support this show for as little as $1 a month. And also click that notification bell. We're here every Monday night with the 13% co-hosts Cynthia, McDonald, and Arthur Ward at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time, and every Thursday in black and white at 7:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time with Rick Lockhart and myself. Check out Christian's channel at youtube.com/Christian J Watkins. Everyone, thanks for tuning in and have a wonderful evening. Good night.